Hey guys, welcome to episode 2. Today I'm going to be talking about back pain and keeping our back in the straightest position possible while we're weightlifting. So Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, and general types of barbell training. So when we're training with our back, we need to make sure that the vertebrae in our back are in a straight line, so they're all stacked over each other all the time. So whether we're squatting, whether we're deadlifting, whether we're doing bent over rows, no matter what type of movement we're doing, in order for us to keep our back as safe as possible, we need to make sure that our spine is dead straight. Okay, so there's a couple of things that are going to help us to keep it straight. One of those things is going to be our core, and the other thing is going to be our upper back. So being able to engage our lats and use our scapular muscles on our back. So upper back. Okay. So if these two things here aren't working, we're not going to be able to brace our spine as best as what we can, and then obviously that's going to open us up for injury as well as a decrease in performance as well, because our body's not going to be as stable. So in order to keep our vertebrae in a nice straight line, nice and straight, we need to make sure that our core is engaged. And what that means is being able to put our pelvis, so our hips, into a neutral position so that they're straight, so that our spine can be straight as well. So a common problem for a lot of people is not having enough control of their pelvis, especially while they're training. So all this means is that, so pelvis is our hips. So instead of having our pelvis neutral when we're lifting so that our spine's able to be nice and straight, usually what happens is most people go into an extension fold. So their pelvis will tilt forward. So instead of their pelvis being like that, it will tilt forward. So what that means is that they'll have this big arch in their lower back, okay? What this means then is that because there's now this arch in our lower back, these vertebrae are now no longer stacked over the top of each other. So there's this arch there, like this, okay? So what this means is that the distribution of weight that we have on our back, so just say we're back squatting, we have a heavy load on our back, the weight's being distributed straight down, like that, okay? Straight down to the center of your foot, because that's where we have the most support for our weight, to make sure that we're obviously going to be able to lift the weight. When this force is distributed down, that means that the force on our vertebrae is now not supported by the vertebrae below it and by the disc below it. So the discs are all in between the vertebrae, like that. Okay? So that means now that these discs in between the vertebrae here are all weighted unequally. So you can see how this line, the distribution of weight, while we're back squatting, is put in the center of this disc, but then on the edge of this disc, the edge of that one, the edge of that one, and the edge of that one. That means that when we squat, the weight's being put unevenly into our back, which is going to open us up for massive issues. It's important that we always have the weight centered and straight, so that the underlying vertebrae are supporting the ones above it. Anytime it's not supporting the ones above it is when we're going to start to have issues, okay? So we need to make sure that this is all kept straight. So that's by engaging our core. Now that's something that for most people has to be taught. It's not something that just happens by someone just telling you to keep your core tight. More than likely, it's going to be fairly hard for you to engage it. So there is something that needs to be taught or read up on. To be able to make sure that happens. So, or getting someone to look at you or videoing yourself to make sure that you actually are engaging your core and you don't just think you are. So that's number one. Number two, making sure that our upper back's engaged. So with our squatting, with our deadlifting, any type of lifting, we need to make sure that our upper back is engaged. Otherwise, what's going to happen is our thoracic spine, so our upper back, is going to have a curve in it. So it's going to curve like this instead of being in a nice straight line. It's the same deal. What we're going to do is make sure that our vertebrae are all nice and straight and stacked over each other so that they support each other. Anytime that doesn't happen and we start to get this arch in the lower back, what that means is that our back's going to be compromised and there's a chance there that we could get hurt. So being able to engage our upper back and getting our lats active. So being able to pull our shoulder blades back, but not just pinning our shoulder blades back, being able to pull down as well and get our lats working, so the muscle underneath our armpits, making sure that that's working and turned on the whole time so that we can maintain this the whole time and try and get away from that. Common with back pain. Back pain's a funny one. In terms of the pain won't be immediate. So, for example, you could deadlift with the absolute worst technique possible, and you probably won't get hurt. And you can maybe, even if, especially if you're new to training, you can probably get away with that for a while. So, like, you can get away with it for maybe 6 months, maybe 12 months, maybe 18 months, maybe 2 years. But there will be a time when your spine gives out and it's taken too much load and it's not able to support your technique. So it's called an overuse injury. So your body has a certain amount of lifelines, or your back has a certain amount of lifelines, which it's just gonna use over this period of time. So I might be going through all this stuff and you might be saying, well, I can deadlift with the rounded back and I can do this and I can do that. I don't always have to have my vertebrae straight and I've never got hurt, and that's fine. What that means though is that you're using those lifelines up as you go. Okay? So instead of putting your body in an optimal position, what that means is that in a period of time, there is going to be a time where your back gets sore. There is going to be a time where these things start to have a negative effect on your ability to perform and train, and that's when you're going to see the major differences, start to see the injuries start to creep in. So I know it's hard to take on board when it may not be a problem there now, but it is something worth considering. Being able to drop your weights back, being able to spend a little bit more time on your technique now to make sure that it's nailed, making sure that everything's nice and straight and everything's nice and tight, and then being able to hold that technique and then being able to improve the rate rather than just chasing the weight the whole time. So that's something to think about for people that have had back pain, and even for those of you that haven't had back pain as well, being able to increase your performance by providing more stability for the body while you're lifting. So Hope you enjoyed episode 2. If you have any questions or comments about the show, feel free to post them below. Thank you.